Landmark decision protecting a woman's right to access abortion services in the United States has been overturned. The Supreme Court decided 5-4 to overturn Roe versus Wade, marking the most consequential Supreme Court decision in a generation. Sky News Washington correspondent Annalise Nielsen is in Raleigh, North Carolina, covering this. Annalise, what happens next?
Well, this is a decision from Washington, D.C., but the ramifications will be felt right across the country. We'll get to that in a moment, but firstly, these scenes outside the Supreme Court have been extraordinary. Protesters from both sides, the pro-choice and the pro-life lobbies, gathering for this opinion to be released. Now, as some background, each day they're released after 10 a.m. when the court designates that there's going to be opinions released, and so people weren't sure whether this was going to happen, but they were quite sure of what the result was going to be after the extraordinary leak of this opinion. So what we had today was this opinion from the Supreme Court bench, which is now a Conservative majority. That's another reason why people were so convinced that this was going to be overturned. These were Trump appointees on the bench. They voted 6-3 to uphold the original challenge in the Supreme Court, and that was this law in Mississippi that would ban abortions after 15 weeks. But this case also posed the question about whether Roe v. Wade should be overturned on the basis that using the privacy principle in the Constitution was too far about a draw to protect the right to access abortion. Now, that's where it was a 5-4 majority, the Chief Justice Roberts abstaining from that, saying you could decide one without the other, but the other Conservative justices went ahead to do this. This poses a huge question nationally of what happens next, because it sends the decision back to the states. That's something that the President addressed in a special speech he gave at 12:30 about this decision, where he said that they'll be doing everything they can to protect women who travel to another state to access an abortion.
I will do all of my power to protect a woman's right in states where they will face the consequences of today's decision. While the court's decision cast a dark shadow over a large swath of the land, many states in this country still recognize a woman's right to choose. So, if a woman lives in a state that restricts abortion, the Supreme Court's decision does not prevent her from traveling from her home state to the state that allows it.
Annalise, it's pretty obvious which states will move quickest to ban abortion, those red states.
Yeah, it's always a bit complicated, though, because it's not just what a red state is, it's who controls the state legislature. And so this is where some of the complication comes. That's, for instance, why we're in North Carolina. This state is controlled by Republicans in the state House and Senate, but they have a Democratic governor who vetoes any chance that they've had to try and overturn any abortion allowances within the state in previous years. And so while there's no trigger law in place that's going to come into effect overnight, what we are going to see is a strong lobby to make that happen. But this is where the national map is so interesting. And so we have a list here. This is the state of play for US states now, because this does go back to the state governments. Trigger laws are in place in 13 states across the country. That means they already have some kind of legislation in place that is going to be activated upon this opinion or within the next 30 days to completely ban abortion. There's 7 states likely to ban abortion. That includes North Carolina, where I am now, 10 that are uncertain. Sorry, actually, North Carolina is within the uncertain category. 7 that are likely to ban already have something in place ready to move. Likely to remain legal, though, is 21 states, and even some of those are already moving to put in further protection for abortion services. And so what this does do is create a very complicated landscape nationally. What we are also going to see too is more focus on what Congress can be doing. Nancy Pelosi has come out and said she wants to see legislation come through federal Congress that would protect this. But there's other aspects to this as well, that they can protect the right to access medical services from a different state, and so you can get potentially drugs mailed to you. These are all things that are going to be examined by the federal government, who's been wargaming this for quite some time in anticipation that this was going to happen.
Absolutely huge story today. Thank you very much, Annalise.